2. So I'm gonna try to explain more about people of this type. You may not understand this part too. So, um, you know what? Maybe a year or two ago, I may have thought, oh, this type of person has to be this person. It turns out it's not entirely the case. So, I had to get rid of that type of thinking because it's not correct. Not all people of a certain personality type are like that. So I'll just have to make a label for this type of person instead. Make my own label, create my own system of things, right? Um, so this type of person, um, you know, like every type of person has enemies. Every type of person has enemies. Every type of person has allies and friends, right? So, um, I mean, like, I don't want to say that's absolute, but I want to say that, um, I want to think of it like, um, you know, like how there's all these countries and they have all these wars in history. Um, the United States has enemies, and the United States has been in wars. So obviously this is on a macro level. On a micro level, it's not in terms of countries and such, but I'm just giving examples. So, what's the problem? I'll start with these examples, but I'm not going to be able to. So let's explain more about this type of person. So this type of person, so the selective inattention, it basically means it comes from, I may be complaining about it. It's basically black bile. So black bile um, is basically ancient European school of thought. This is sometimes people are not taught this in school. I'm not sure how teachers can really teach it. Um, but basically, black bile um, is basically if a person's under black bile um, or melancholic, it basically means they're they basically it, you can basically they're not in a position to be compromised. So if you want to compromising types of people tend to be more sanguine. So, how can you detect if someone is a melancholic black bot? There's no easy ways. Um, there's no sure ways. Some people may look at the person's facial expression. Might have some accuracy in it, but for the most part, um, not as reliable in my opinion because um, especially nowadays because where I live, there's people of all sorts of races. That idea came from the Greeks, and for the most part, it mostly describes the examples given do not apply to other races. So that's not exactly. I mean, back then, they didn't exactly have computers or scanners so that they draw something or they can save a file. They don't have any. They didn't have things like that back then. So the fact that they had written it on stone tablets is incredible enough. Um, the fact that there are actually scrolls on it that preserved is quite incredible. The ideas are quite advanced. So, however, black bile is only one component, and it's not the only one. So, a person under black bile, basically, I'll have to try to explain it like this. Um, which things would apply to a person under this? Um, Instead of looking up on the internet, looking on the traits and descriptions, I'm gonna give you some examples. So, let's say that your ninth grade freshman year is the first few days of school, and you're looking for clubs. So, let's say there are like 10 clubs you can join. The melancholic black bile will only be present in one or two of those clubs, and if you're not in those clubs, just that's that. But again, there are exceptions. Like They're not just in clubs. They're also in the small percentage of classes you attend. So you may have like 6 or 7 or 8 classes, right? Only 1 or 2 of those classes will matter, right? So it's like um I'm like it's up to you to figure out which one of those classes. It's like I know it's just like you have to like it's like basically walking on eggshells. it's like it's like walking on eggshells is basically a term for it's not as it's correlated with political correctness, but um basically a compromising position where um for the most part um it's it's basically like walking on eggshells with these types of people. Like again, like I said in the interview, I will repeat myself over and over again that they will only care about a small percentage. Of, like if they focus on you at all, they only care a small percentage of what you say, what you do, or whatever. 95% of it, all you might remember it. You might care about those 95%. They don't care at all. Like it's not put in their memory at all. They ignored it completely, and that's like I'm like that doesn't make any sense. Why would a person only pay attention to this 5%? Like everyone messes up, right? Like there's pressure, there's high and stuff. People can get pressure and stuff, and only that 5% will count. And I'm like, that's not fair. Oh, not necessarily. Like maybe that 5% is when you were, because people snap, people mess up, right? And it's like they only care about that 5%, and I'm just like, I mean, doesn't that make? I mean, it's like that's like that's. I mean, I've read about double standard, even if I don't understand it completely. The thing is, these people will only care about that 5%, which means like if you're thought like for the most part, it's a complete nightmare in most cases because it's like let's say you did 10 practice interviews, right? And you mess up on one of them, that's the one that counts. Not always, Sometimes they only care about the one that doesn't. It's kind of like Murphy's law, kind of. It's like I just mentioned an example of Murphy's law. It's not always that way. Some people don't have much better luck than others. It's just but it's like it makes me think that these people don't have the ability to feel guilt, which is like um is kind of correct because nowadays you have all these medications that can suppress guilt. There are those symptoms. So if there's certain symptoms that are correlated with having guilt, they can have medications that can block those. Of course, there may be side effects to it. So, say, let's give an example. Not statistics. I was just thinking, yeah, generics. Because the examples I remember with guilt are, I think, itchy butt, and maybe like gulls or something like that. Can't remember all the rest of it. I think it's that thing that people that you get on. What's that thing that causes swollen neck where it's like I can't remember the name. Is it gout or something? GOUT. I can't remember. It's like, but for the most part, like um, I'm just like I don't really understand. I never quite understood like I can't really understand like I don't know if I mean it's like chemistry or physics or something where for some reason like when I was younger there weren't nearly as many ISTJs and ESTJs and ENFPs, but for some reason the percentage of them tend to explode. So now there's like 90% of people that are of those three personality types. And I'm like, that's not possible. Because usually you would think that it'd be more even distribution on the 16 types. I'm like, You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm just like, these are what you're observing. And I'm like, how's that possible? How's it possible that it's only those three types? And I'm like, where are the other types? I mean, like prison or something? Maybe. I it doesn't make sense. I'm just like, I remember there was a I remember younger, didn't, except maybe in school. Actually, no, not necessarily, because there were other classes I didn't attend. Those classes had a more even distribution of other types. I'm just like, well, I can't just go back to school and learn chemistry and physics, because it's like I can't go back to school. I would have to understand those topics. That's the thing with nowadays being a teacher. You have to understand. If you were like a teacher, you would have to understand all these other irrelevant topics. Back in the old days, you didn't have to understand almost irrelevant subjects, right? So